We are here with Reece Morrish, who I had the pleasure of coaching in high school as a flag football player. Reece is a 2022 graduate from Woodstock High School. She was a 4-year starter for the Wolverines. She recorded 187 goals and 82 assists in her 4 years. Reece was selected team MVP all 4 seasons and was selected to first team All-County 3 of her 4 seasons. She was also awarded Georgia Positive Athlete her junior and senior year. Reece committed to play at Radford University out of high school and just completed her sophomore season. She entered the transfer portal after the season and will now be playing for Kennesaw State University for her remaining 2 seasons. Reece, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right. So we're gonna make it easy. We'll start slow here, but tell us how you started playing lacrosse.
Yeah, so I started playing lacrosse when I was in second grade, so I've been playing for a really long time. And I started at a local youth organization called CYLA. And my mom played lacrosse, actually. She played lacrosse and field hockey. She did not play lacrosse in college. She played field hockey in college, though. And so she wanted to see, like, if I would like the sport as well. And I ended up really enjoying it and stuck with it all throughout my middle school and high school years. After CYLA, I ended up going to the Junior Chiefs program, which is out of Sequoia, because my high school did not have a feeder program at the time. And I stayed there till 8th grade. And then in 8th grade, I did move over to Atlanta Storm, which is a travel program. And I played Atlanta Storm all the way through 8th grade to my senior year fall. So that's kind of how I got started with lacrosse and my journey through it.
Okay, great.
Okay, Reece, and so you mentioned you played for Atlanta Storm. How do you think that helped with your development as a player?
Yeah, I think it helped in a lot of ways, actually. I think one of the biggest ways it helped with my development as a player is how Atlanta Storm brought in current college lacrosse players to be coaches of these Storm teams. And I think that was something that, like, I really liked and helped with my development as a player because they're playing at a really high level and they're playing really competitive lacrosse and competitive teams. So they have a great knowledge of the game. And when they come down to coach these teams and these younger girls, I think they are really like getting their knowledge out there to these individuals and like really coaching these individuals to grow their game and like in different ways. And so I think that was something that really helped with my development as a player. And then I also think that helped my development as a player is the positional clinics that they held. They have positional clinics for goalies, midfields, attack, defense, like draw work, whatever. And I really like that because it did focus on position specific things. And it, again, was with college lacrosse players who have great knowledge of the game. And so it also was in smaller groups. So you did get that more one-on-one time with the instructor and you really were able to like fine tune a skill. So
Excellent. That's great.
All right. So if you could do it, what would be one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
So I feel like I'm somewhat of a perfectionist, and I feel like that's something that I've always had about myself playing. Like, I want everything about what I do to be perfect, and I know it never will be. But I would tell myself, like my younger self, to accept the flaws for what they are, learn from them, and grow from them. Everything's not going to be perfect about how I play. So I just need to like let loose and have fun with it and enjoy it while it lasts because it doesn't last forever.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think a lot of people need to know and understand that.
Yes,
That's
definitely.
big to realize that. Throughout the recruiting process, what were the things you were looking for when you were selecting a school?
Yeah, so there's quite a few things I was looking for in a school during my recruiting process. I would say the main thing I was looking for was a major that suited what I wanted to do later in life. you are going to school to play lacrosse, but you also are going to school for a degree. So this was something that was important to me because I didn't just want to go to a school and play lacrosse and then just get a degree that I didn't want anything to do with later in life. I wanted both. So that was super important to me. Another thing that was super important to me was I wanted to be closer to home. So that was something that I was looking for to school was the distance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I set myself a 6-hour radius from my home. And luckily Radford was within that 6-hour radius. So that did check that box on that list. And then another thing was the team. So I wanted to be a part of a team that had good team culture and was inclusive and wanted the same goals as everyone else. And so that was definitely something that I was looking for in the initial recruiting process.
Good. Staying on recruiting, what was like some of the biggest challenges that you faced when recruiting?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest challenge is the waiting game. This was probably my biggest challenge and probably a lot of others' biggest challenges. But I had to wait for coaches to like email me back with like a next step on what to do or like even respond to my first initial email that I sent them. And sometimes it took a little longer than I expected for them to get back to me. And I tried really hard to stay patient, but it's such an exciting time. Just like being able to get to talk to talk to the different colleges and coaches and like see if there's a potential for you to like commit to that school. And so it was very hard to stay patient, but that is definitely something that I feel like was a challenge. Um, I would say this is more of a personal one for me, but I would say the phone calls were a challenge. I was so nervous going, like preparing to get on the phone with a coach. And like I physically had to prepare myself with what I was going to say, like with any possible question that they were going to shoot at me. So I literally had like a 4-page Word document with questions and answers written out just so like I was on the phone, I had my computer in front of me, I was
Yeah.
prepared. So
So
I
that
would say
goes back to you being a perfectionist. There you
Yeah.
go.
I definitely think that was something that made me nervous, and that personally was a challenge for me and possibly could be a challenge for others.
Yeah, and I think like a big thing was for both of our daughters, it was like the first week, Lacey got the offer that she wanted, and it took, Caitlin, a month or so. So everybody's got a different time
Yeah,
frame for when that
definitely,
happens. Yeah, it's
definitely.
definitely the case.
Okay, so we talked about the recruiting process a bit here, and essentially you've done it now twice. Is there anything that you would have done different looking back at it?
I do not think I would have done anything different with like the email and phone call wise of like the recruiting process. I think I would have done prospect camps differently. So I did go to prospect camps, but I went to prospect camps when I was a freshman in high school. And I do feel like coaches aren't really like looking at freshmen before they're going to look at like juniors and sophomores. They're not going to look at freshmen before them. So I feel like I went at the wrong time. I feel like I could have gone later in my recruiting process, which I wish I did. Because looking back on it from a college player experience, like we do evaluate players at these camps. And so, and especially the girls that like are able to commit. So I do wish like I would have waited a little bit longer, and I wish I would have picked like my top 3 schools that I was interested in and really
Right.
made them get to their camp.
Yeah. Um, what is the biggest difference that you think from playing in high school compared to college?
Um, I think it's the skill level. So I think like for me personally, from playing in high school to playing in college, I think there was a big difference in the skill level at my high school than there was
Mhm.
at college. There was a wide variety of skill level from girls who were just starting out, and then like players like me who had played a while and were, playing travel and all this. And so there was just a big variety of players. And then when I got to college, everyone was kind of on the same level. So it definitely was the skill level, I would say.
Speaking of one of your former high school teammates, who's a few years younger, she gave you a really nice compliment. She was a freshman when you were a senior, and she said that with Reece on the field, it was like having a coach out there. She knew exactly how to set up the draws, how to run the offense. So you were very helpful in her development into the high school level. So I think that's a great compliment coming from someone in your peer group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. So how are things different in college cross now with the transfer portal, and how was your experience in the portal?
Yeah, so I honestly was super nervous to go into the portal because I mean, you just hear it's like the fear of the unknown.
Mhm.
But honestly, like I feel like the transfer portal process was so much easier than the initial recruiting process. The pool of prospects for Division 1 was roughly like 250 girls. Um, like Division 1 girls that were transferring. So it was a significantly smaller pool of girls than like in high school when there's thousands of girls across
Right.
a ton of states that are trying to get recruited. And because this pool was smaller, I do feel like because the pool was smaller, I do feel like more coaches reached out to me. Um, and I was also fortunate to have stats my freshman and sophomore year, so that also
Right.
might have caught a coach's eye to reach out to me as well. I wouldn't say the general idea of the transfer portal was any different than the initial recruiting process. I felt like I was doing it again. Um, the main thing that is different is it is a smaller window. So this year I had from May 15th to June 15th to get recruited. So it was 1 month, which does put a little stress on an athlete to, find a new home and get recruited. But it definitely was a smaller window. So I
And
would say
and you
that's probably the
and do you
biggest thing.
think the coaches reached out to you because you did have that experience? Like
Yeah.
you have that playing experience at the college level?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. How many schools did you hear from?
Um, I probably roughly heard from 9 or 10 schools.
Okay.
And then I was able to email schools that I was interested in. So I probably reached out to 7 or 8 schools that I was interested in.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
I follow up to that. Do you think like the course of recruiting is going to change the next several years, where coaches are going to look more for more experienced transfer players rather than trying to bring in freshmen, or like how do you think that's going to play out?
It possibly could, depending on the level of talent that's coming through the high schools.
Right.
So I definitely could see it happening where they go to the portal more, but I also could kind of just seeing it stay the same because I mean there is a lot of talent in high school too.
Sure.
Um,
Absolutely.
and girls are from different areas and different high schools. So I mean like a lot of the northern schools do have very good high school teams where everyone is kind of on the same level of play,
Right.
where like my high school, for example, wasn't like that. So I think it just kind of depends.
Yeah, I think that's one of the factors that we've learned over the years is as a whole, the state of Georgia is a little bit on the
Yeah.
behind the trend when,
Yeah.
Right.
it's not that there isn't good players here, it's just there isn't the depth that other places have. So,
Right. Yeah.
so
What kind of experience with NIL did you have or do you have?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask this. I honestly have no experience with it. I haven't
Okay.
really looked into it and I don't know much about it.
I got you.
that's okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Um, so is there any advice that you would give to girls who want to play in college at the Division 1 level or any other level at all?
Yeah, so I have 3 pieces of advice. I would say my first piece of advice is to not feel like you have to commit to the first school that offers or talks to you. Take your time with your recruiting process and feel out your options to find the best fit for you. There's going to be a home for you and it will take time to find it. And then my second piece of advice would be to not take any practice or game for granted. You never know when it's going to be your last, so you always want to try your hardest and play like it's your last. And then my third piece of advice is to surround yourself with people who support you and want you to succeed. I think this is so important, like during your recruiting process and all throughout college as well. Not everyone is going to want the best for you and is not going to support you. So find those people that will support you and keep them close.
That's
Awesome.
really good. That's great advice. Yeah. It is different for everybody that goes through the process. So, you know, there's all those different experiences with it. So yeah. Well,
Right.
I'm going to say selfishly, I'm excited to have you at Kennesaw